everybody. How's it going? Hello, Jeff. You're right, it is Sunday. Hello, Valentine. Hello, David. Happy Sunday to everybody here on the old Logik Live. It's a gloomy day here in the Hudson Valley of New York, if I'm going to be so, not emotionally. I would say just kind of meteorologically. You know, the sun is always shining a little brighter, though, at 2 o'clock when the music starts rolling. And thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you, Mark. It is good to see you. Hello, hello, hello. These levels sound great. I hope you mean emotionally, as well as like audiologically, maybe? Ideologically, not ideologically? This has been Good Morning, Richard. Oh, man. And Jeff, you live in Sunnyside, right? Which is, you would think, is like the sunny part of Queens, just, you know, given its name. Hey, Miriam! How are you? Hello, Manoj. Oh, this is great. All the levels and all the feels. Hello, 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 Jason. Randy McEntee is in the house. You know, what I love is that Randy joined just when the music got like all introspective and everything. And now it's time for Randy's favorite part, which, as you all know, is the dissolve. Hey, I got it right this week. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Logik Live. My name is Andy. I have to tell everyone, in case you didn't know, in case you hadn't heard me espouse this already, it's been a very emotional week for my family. My child, both my kids went off to college. My wife and I are empty nesters. It's just me and her and the cats, and all of you. And but it's just a very exciting time for us, and I'm looking forward to even more stuff with Logik. Now that I have free time and no children, running around and creating distractions. Happy Sunday, and let's get underway, shall we? This is Logik Live number 60, Developing the Look with Hardave Grewal, and we'll bring Hardave in just a minute. But the first thing I need to tell you all, and this is very important, is Logik Live is brought to you by Synesys.io, solutions, development, integration, and support. Supporting flame artists since 1997, and apparently my AirPods are nearby. That's a new one, Randy. Wow, I'll have to remember that. I want to thank everyone at Synesys. These folks have been my my reseller. Hold on, I'm gonna do my best to get rid of this. I can't. They've been my personal reseller for about 15 years, and we could not do what we do without them. So I want to thank them for supporting the flame community. Also want to thank our friends at AJA, makers of the best hardware there is out there. If you need anything in the way of video hardware, for professional video that is, reach out to AJA at aja.com. I hope everybody either, if you didn't tune in to last week's show and see the announcement that Action VFX has a subscription, please head over to actionvfx.com and consider subscribing. For $15 a month, you get access to basically everything in their library. These guys are great. We had them on a while back. It was episode 49, and we're just big fans of what they have to offer. And we also have a 20% discount for Logik patrons for Action VFX. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, you can become a patron. And let's give a shout out to our friends at Boris Effects. They just had a big announcement. I believe it was an update to Silhouette Paint. If you're in the market for any of their plugins, and they of course make the best plugins in the business, please use the discount code Logik-15 at checkout. Save yourself 15% on everything that they make and support Logik at the same time. If you need anything in the way of technical support, reach out to Tom and Tom at Gunpowder at info@gunpowder.tech. And I don't know if you've heard yet, but we got merch. The Logik TV merch store is open. If you head on over to Logik.tv, you'll see the merch link up at the top of the screen, and you can deck yourself out in some of the most phenomenal gear out there while you do your flaming. And as always, we want to thank our patrons at Patreon. The list keeps growing. Look at this list. Randy, if you were on, I would have you read all of these names, but we're just going to take this all in. I want to thank all of our patrons for their support. It's been phenomenal. And if you'd like to become a patron and get access to some great merch and some exclusive content, like after the show here, Hardave is going to host an exclusive Q&A for the Patreon patrons. If you want to be a part of that, for as little as $5 a month, you can head on over to patreon.com/LogikTV and become a patron. Again, I want to wish a happy birthday to the forum. The forum turned 1 year old this month. Thank you to Randy. We have something like 895 active members, I believe. We're hitting 5,000 page views. God, I think it's a day. It's been a phenomenal success, and thank you to Randy for putting all that together. We have some big announcements coming up for Logik Academy. If you haven't checked out Connect to Conform by Jeff Kyle, please do. It's a phenomenal workflow, and Jeff put together this amazing 3-part Logik Academy. It's available on our website and on the YouTube channel. It's all free. There's a link to to download the archive of the media if you want to follow along. And next month, we're going to be announcing some 3 new videos in the Logik Academy series. Jeff put together another one on the image node and that workflow, which will dovetail nicely into what Hardave is showing today. And Randy put together 2 Logik Academy installments, 8-minute aces and intro to NDI. So stay tuned for an announcement on that one. And now it's time to start the show. My guest today is Hardave Grewal, who is a colorist and a flame artist based out of Toronto. And with any luck, when I bring him on here, the microphone will be on. Let's just see. I'm feeling good about this. Hardave, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Oh, my gosh. Wonderful. Whew. You don't know. It's just so stressful. I mean, I have like I don't know if you can see it in the window on your end, Hardave, but like, the feedback, the comments are coming in, and I'm just waiting, every week there's good. I know that Randy's watching, and he sets very high expectations for me, and that keeps me motivated. And I feel like today it finally all came together. You know what? Maybe it's my kids. Maybe I should be blaming my kids because they're the only variable that's changed, now that they're out of the house. But enough about me, Hardave. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Well,
You?
you know what? I could and have talked about myself extensively. I just want to dive right into what you're going to show today, Hardave. I know, like, even speaking for myself, color grading is the one aspect of being a flame artist or being a visual effects artist that I have not had as much exposure to and as much practice with. And I find it a little intimidating. And for me, it's always, where do you start and how do you start? I can certainly take someone's color grade and tweak what's needed, either based on like, client feedback, or if something changed overall, or if I got a piece of stock footage that I need to kind of tweak and get it into the same, family and the same fields, everything else, that I'm comfortable with. But being handed a piece of raw footage or a whole spot's worth of raw footage and knowing where to start is always like a hurdle for me. And so when you proposed coming on to Logik Live and showing this, I was like, this is great, because it definitely speaks to me, and I'm sure it speaks to a bunch of other people. So I'm going to give you the screen, and why don't we get going?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely as a flame artist, you just said it right there. Most of the time, we're just tweaking something or comping an element in, matching the black levels, or just doing small tweaks. It's a completely different beast or animal to develop a look, create a look, apply it to a hero shot, get your clients to agree on that stuff, and then drop it on all the rest of the shots and make everything look consistent and basically develop a look that everyone loves. So yeah, that's what I decided to kind of come on with this topic because there's been a lot of great presenters before that have talked about other things, and I felt like this is something that maybe we can discuss this and talk about this topic, which not a lot of flame artists are doing color grading in flame, but this would be a great intro on how do you get started? What do you do? What's a look? How do you develop that look? These kinds of things, and try to kind of get to the bottom of some of these things. As a colorist, I've been color grading since 2008, so 12, 13 years now. And, you start off and you're just like when you're starting off in flame, you're kind of just learning tutorials, and you're kind of picking it up as you go, and you're making mistakes, and you're learning your lessons, and you kind of develop tips and tricks as you go along to kind of get better. And, at the very beginning, you're basically just spinning the dials and looking at your clients and saying, does this look good? What do you think about this? And as I in my development and as a colorist, now my focus has shifted more towards this idea of respecting the original photography on set. So the idea for this presentation is, the overall approach is just to find out how to respect the original photography on set and build your look around that concept. There's a lot of like before I even get the footage, there's a lot of discussions with behind the scenes with the director and the DP about what the look is. And then the DP is doing all that stuff on set, setting the lights, setting the exposure, setting the contrast, gelling the lights, all this kind of stuff to basically set the look. Uh, my job is to take that log encoded raw image and develop the look that was intended by the director of photography. That's really my approach now, is finding that look. And then once you find that look that was developed on set, then you can tweak from there. Early on, I used to just spin the dials, and you'd get these kind of comments where, oh yeah, that shirt didn't really look like that. It looked a little bit more red, or the jeans were a little bit more blue, or true blue. So once you find the original photography, all that stuff falls in place. So I'm gonna discuss kind of the overall approach here, and then start getting into it. But the overall idea is just to respect the original photography, find that photography, and then set the look. So I'm going to borrow the idea here from another great colorist, Walter Volpato. He's a colorist at Company 3. This kind of concept, once I kind of picked this up from him, it fell in place. It fell in line with my gut instinct of trying to work in this way of finding this photography. And he came up with this idea. I mean, didn't come up with this idea, but the idea basically is a negative positive model. So DPs and photography, doing film, there's 100 years of shooting film and developing, exposing the film with a certain concept. So in this diagram here, you're seeing the top part of it there is, we shoot with the film, we develop the negative. In our case now with digital, we debayer. But with the film, you would develop the negative. You would
Hey,
use
Hardave,
print.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, man, but could you just
Yeah,
make that slide full frame?
yeah,
So I can
sure.
follow along. Great, thanks.
There you go. Sorry, guys. So printer points would be just kind of timing and getting some of the just balance in the image, and then you'd print that to film. And basically, the film, the positive film print would give you the look. So you'd get a Kodak look, or you'd get a Fuji look. It's almost like the look was inherent in the actual negative, or in the print itself. With digital on the bottom there, you basically have the same kind of concept where you have a camera sensor. The sensor captures the data. The data is developed or debayered into a log encoded file, a 16-bit log encoded, or sorry, a 16 log encoded file that is capable of containing 16 stops of information. Then you have this kind of place in the middle where you're doing this, I divide the color grading and the color correction. So the color correction would be the kind of stuff where you're just balancing a shot, you're making the exposure a little bit brighter, a little bit darker, or you may be timing out some magenta out of the image, or just working with the tint to kind of get some balance out of it. And then you have the look or the color grading idea there. So I'm kind of dividing this the color correction or fixing the image versus a color grading, which is actually applying a look or a distinctive style to the film itself or the show. And then, of course, on the back end of all that stuff, you have either in the film side, it goes to theater and we project it, or in our case, in a lot of what we do in TV broadcast, it goes to a Rec 709 color space on a TV somewhere for broadcast. So taking this model of this negative positive and trying to develop the look with this idea where the DP's done this work. He's shot with all these lights and stuff and exposed correctly. And we're now just trying to develop or debayer the footage, balance it, and then apply a look. So the idea that the DP is working on set is the idea of 18% gray. So, you know, this is how photography is, this is how film is. Everyone develops around the idea of 18% gray. So the DP will expose for 18% gray, and then you will have stops above and stops below. So you'll have, in the particular case of like TV, you may have 3 stops above or and 3 stops below before it just becomes black or it just becomes white and falls off. So the DP on set is exposing with this idea where he's basically trying to expose for 18% gray, have 3 or 4 stops above that he's exposing for that will show up. Everything else will go to white, and then same thing on the bottom end. Everything will go into shadows after about 3 or 4 stops. So I'm going to show you some test frames here that I have borrowed from Walter, and thank you, Walter, for allowing us to use these stills for this presentation. But basically, this is on the top there, you see 16 stops or steps from black to white to represent basically a log encoded file that can contain that 16 steps. This one here we're looking at is a log C file. You'll see that there's also one for red and one for Sony. So you'll notice that those numbers and the actual middle gray square is changing, meaning that if you were to go to Ari's website and look up 18% gray code value, you'd find that it'd be this number, or roughly 400 code value on a 0 to 1023 scale. So this number is a great thing to have, because if I just go to my scopes here and show you the scopes, on the scopes here, it shows up right here at that value. So if I again go to the red, you'll see it drops down a bit, and on the Sony, it's a little higher. So what you're seeing is with the Ari log C, 18% is at 400. With red log 3G10, you can kind of see that the actual 18% gray that they're exposing for is a little bit lower, meaning that red is exposing for more highlights than shadows, and with the Ari, you have a little bit more exposed in the shadows versus the red. That's why sometimes when red is underexposed, you may get that noise because it's not really protecting for that area. And then of course Sony is a little bit higher, closer to Ari, but it's given a little bit more room in those shadows to get more information packed into that log file. So that's basically the concept here, is to build a curve. So I'm going to build a contrast curve now. So this is talking about the first concept of building a look, which is building the contrast. So you can see there's a big spike here. That big spike is represented by this Ari log. See, I'm going to use Ari for this example because the footage that I'm actually using is Ari. So let's follow along with the Ari chart here. So basically, I'm going to use the 18% gray as the middle point. And I'm going to count down 3 stops from here, 1, 2, 3, and somewhere around here, I'm going to just bring down and start building in a contrast curve, or as you guys see, an S curve, or building some sort of curve that has some fall off on the top end and on the bottom end. So let me just add in some splines and just start to curve this. So you can kind of see on the scopes over here, we're starting to build in an S curve. And this S curve is just like I said before, where we're building around this 18% gray. We're allowing these stops to expose here and show up. And then everything else after that is going to start to fall off into either the knee of the S curve or the toe of the S curve. So going back to what we were doing here. So if I just toggle this on and off, you can kind of see that this straight line now turns into a bit of an S curve here. So now taking that idea of building this S curve and copying this and coming over to some actual footage, let's apply this concept of building this curve around this 18% gray, preserving 3 stops above, 3 stops below, and see what happens to our image. So this is what building your contrast curve will do. you can now, basically start to tweak it on the image, but you're already starting from a place that's pretty good. So you can either do what I just did there, which is start to muck around the curve itself, or you can add a node before it and now start to dial in a little bit more contrast just using the actual control panels on my panel here. Always easier to use the panel when color grading. Highly recommend that if you're going to start doing color grading in a serious level. But that's basically the idea of building a curve, going from the flat log C and building something that will look proper on a broadcast monitor with that idea of 18% gate, three stops above, three stops below, and that's the first concept: building a contrast curve. So, what is a look? We're developing a look, but what is a look? All kinds of different looks. You can have different films having different looks themselves. You have stuff like bleach bypass. You have warm looks. You have cool looks. You have the classic blockbuster Hollywood orange teal look. You have
which is simultaneously warm and cool.
Yeah, actually, it's warm in the highlights and the midtones, and cool in the shadows. That teal is actually more in the shadow or mid shadows to shadow range. But the basic idea there is to maximize color contrast and make your eyes just make the image pop. So the other one there is the Technicolor 2 strip and the Technicolor 3 strip, based out of a process, an old process that nobody does anymore by shooting 3 different strips of film. And of course, your black and white, and variations on all these, black and white with a little bit of color, like you have in Pleasantville or Sin City. But just showing some examples of frames here. So we have, some movies here. I mean, if you bonus points for calling out the films as we go along. But bleach bypass is I guess the main characteristics of a bleach bypass are that these in the film world, the silver would be retained and not actually washed out of the image, and it would allow this look that you would get, which is a more desaturated, high contrast kind of look. And that was kind of the main characteristics of a bleach bypass look. You have the warm look, which is using warm gels and warm set design, like you see on the right hand side, and giving a warm look. Then you have your close up photos here of the films themselves, just to get a better look. You have the cool look, which is 2 different styles. I guess more in the 80s and 90s, you had a little bit more of a bluer kind of style. And then as we're getting into more modern films, you kind of have more of a greeny cyan as the kind of cool look almost nowadays. I'm sure people will recognize these films. They're pretty famous. And then you got your black and white, different kinds of black and white. Raging Bull here, you got kind of a lower contrast black and white. Sometimes the black and white can be true black and white. Sometimes it can have a little bit of tint or something to it. It's a little bit of green or a little bit of warmth to it to mimic some sort of print. But and then you have something like this, which is a little bit more higher contrast. Gordon Willis style Godfather, deep blacks kind of look for your black and white. And of course, your Technicolor look I was saying before with this 3-strip process. You have your Wizard of Oz, obviously, and your Gone with the Wind. But what is a look? Like, how do you make a look? What is, like, all those films that we just saw there? They're all cinematic, but what is that? So, what is like color grading versus color correction? I think I kind of just covered that previously with the color correction. In my sense, in my idea of color correction is the little fixes between shots, and the color grading is the actual style. But the look itself, I propose, is actually built on set before it's developed with the lighting, the set design, the makeup, the costumes. There's a lot of things that go into the look. If we talk about even just that warm look that we were looking at there. The warm look is actually built around the whole set design and the tungsten lighting. So a lot of things go into the look. Us as colorists we're respecting the photography on set and developing the look out of that. Now we may artificially push colors in or try to augment, but the basic idea is that the look is actually done on set and we're just enhancing it, we're developing it, we're just making it look good for the intended device that it is going to be viewed on. So the idea of cinematic, someone saying to me, I want this to look cinematic, is impossible. The way to get a look is to, like I just showed you guys, show different looks and talk about them and see what people gravitate towards. Sometimes I'll have clients and I'll show them a bunch of images and discuss the film or the project. And, by going back and forth, you'll discuss, oh, okay, he actually doesn't want a high contrast look. He wants a soft, natural look. And you kind of use a dialogue or discussion to talk with the director, talk with the DP, see what they have in mind, and develop the look that way. So I've already kind of covered the contrast aspect there by building our S-curve. So I'm going to just show you basically what that contrast and the contrast, the pivot, and the exposure, kind of the three things that I go to first when I'm color correcting something. So these are kind of more film kind of controls where you're doing basic controls that are just pushing the image around so that you're finding the right sweet spot for what the DP has shot. So in this example here, I have a ramp that goes from black to white. And in the bottom corner here, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see this. But you'll see that, you got black here, you got white here. As I start to turn the contrast, you'll start to see something happen. As I turn the contrast dial, you'll start to see an S-curve starts to appear. So basically the same thing we just did with building a custom curve by dragging those points down on the curves. You get this S-curve, or by me just turning the contrast dial, you start to get that same idea. The other one that is in conjunction with this that works well is the contrast and the pivot. So the pivot now is pivoting around a certain point. So you can kind of use both of those in conjunction to dial in the contrast. So I'm going to just pop to a shot here and just do that on a shot now. So I'm going to turn the contrast and I'm going to just move this up so you guys can see the scopes. And then I'm going to move the pivot. And as you see the pivot is actually moving the bottom part. As I move it, my pivot dial to the left, it starts to push the bottom portion of the image up. And as I move it the other way, it starts to push the other side down. So, in this particular case, I felt like as I dialed in the contrast, the woman was getting a little too dark under the hat. So I would just push the pivot up. And just by doing these two dials, you really kind of easily just dial in the contrast. So you can either dial it by hand there or by doing these two contrast and pivot dials. The other concept here that was in that three set there was the exposure. So talking about exposure for a second here, if I just use the offset, which is synonymous with exposure, if I just take the exposure, I'm just going to do this on the panel, you'll see the offset here start to go up. And as I should probably do it on a node that you guys can see it, but on the scopes, you guys can see what's actually happening with the image itself. As I increase the offset, it's adding values and pushing basically the whole image up or the whole image down. Same thing if I do that on an image itself. I will usually use this, I usually use it in the same node here, and I will use those three dials contrast, pivot, and exposure, and basically start to dial in the place in which I want my contrast to be. So when I'm moving the offset, I'm actually sliding up and down this line here, or this scale, and finding the sweet spot of where that DP had exposed for, because the DP is not exposing for all 16 stops. He's exposing for 7 stops ish, which is the amount that a display can expose for. Everything else is just going to get clipped or lost, and we're just moving the offset up and down until we find that spot. So that's basically the idea of using the contrast, pivot, exposure. And then the next portion here is using offsets. Usually I use a second node for this, and I'll start to use printer lights or printer points. So printer points are a great thing. It comes from the old days of film, used to balance or correct the film. Sometimes if it had a certain cast or something. So I'm just going to just dial this in a little bit more to something my liking here. But let's just now say that we're going to start playing with the printer points themselves. So as you start to move the printer points around, so I'm starting to add in points of red in. So either you can add red, or maybe the client says, you know what, Hardave, this is a little too yellow. So in that case, I might want to add a few printer points of blue, and you can start to see what's happening on the scopes there. I'm just going to make them a little bit bigger, but we're basically just shifting the scopes, the red, or in this case, the blue, or the green, or the red, to get our balance. So we just kind of move these around. It's a really great way to balance the shot and get things to look normal, or what they look like on set. So that is the concept of printer points. Printer points work really well actually in log mode. So if I do it before the actual custom curve that brings it into Rex 09, you'll get a better result. So usually I'll use the printer points before the actual custom curve. And what else do we got here? So printer points are discussed, moving them around. So maybe it's a good idea just to show you the printer points and what they're doing on our kind of grayscale ramp here. Really helps to show that. So as you can see, same idea. We're starting to add red into our image. It's just moving the red channel up and down. And same thing with the blue and the green. And that's basically the idea of what's going on when you're doing the contrast, pivot, exposure, and the printer points. And the last one there on that is the temperature, color temperature, or tint. So there is a dial here that I have, which I can push around the actual color temperature and cool down the image or warm it up. That's also a great tool to kind of just nudge the video or the file to a place where you want it. But those are kind of my 3 main kind of things to really bring it into a base look, a place where you can start from and start adjusting or starting to set the look after that. Just a second to talk about these same ideas.
Real quick, before you jump into the next slide, I just wanted to bring up something that Quinn put in the chat, which is so true. Is that the scopes tell more truth than the image itself, and it's so great to see you adjust all of these variables with the scopes visible. Because for anybody out there who really wants to learn color, the best thing you can do is throw the scopes up, whether it's waveform or anything, and play around with the different sliders and see what offset does, and see what contrast does, and see how it affects the scopes and the lines on the graph. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Yeah, that's definitely very helpful. And sometimes you're looking at things for a long time and your eyes get tired, they get adjusted. Your eyes can actually start to adjust. And sometimes you're in a color grading room and you're working with the clients, and you're thinking that something looks great, and then you kind of walk out of the room, you come back, and you're like, oh, that was totally red or something. But if you look at the scopes will tell you this stuff. So yeah, it's great to definitely use them as a guideline. So those concepts that I just talked about, excuse me, is exposure, contrast, pivot, and these printer points. These are all in the master grade. So they all you have these abilities to also do the same balancing in Flame as well. And I'm sure Jeff Kyle will probably tie into this. It sounds like with his videos, but we'll just have to wait and see. But those dials are there. So if you want to start playing around with basically taking a piece of footage and messing around with the offset, exposure, and contrast and the printer points, and just see where you get, see how you can dial something in or time out the magenta and the skin tones, those kinds of things. The effects tab also is another place there as well, which is starting to look a lot more like Luster nowadays with its different secondaries and stuff like that. I still feel like there's a few things missing yet, but I definitely like the way that Flame is going into getting into color or getting more features available. So the next idea to talk about would be color space transforms, LUTs, custom curves. So let's move over to here and just talk about cinematic looks or LUTs. I mean, even in Resolve or online in places, or as you've probably worked as a flame artist, people have given you LUTs, or you've have film LUTs and stuff like that. Here in Resolve, we also have looks and LUTs. Let's just take something that Resolve has as a preset LUT here. And usually when we're talking about LUTs, we're talking about three kinds of LUTs. There's either a calibration LUT, which you will put into your display, and it'll calibrate your display to make it look like the intended target display. Most of our cases, Rec 79. Or you'll have the calibration LUT. You have the viewing LUT, so that something will look proper on your monitor. That will look that's supposed to go to film. So if something was going to be printed to a Fuji film, you might have that kind of a LUT to make your monitor look like what it's supposed to look like in the theater. But the one that people most commonly talk about with LUTs is film print emulation LUTs. So basically a LUT that gives you the look of Kodak, the look of Fuji. And here in Resolve, we have those here. Different kinds here. I'm just going to steal one of these. I'm going to just take the which one shall I take here? I'm going to take this Kodak 2383 D55 LUT and just throw it on to this ramp and see what our scopes do. So as you can see, it starts to give us an S curve, but you'll notice that there is some variations in the actual curve itself. These variations give the nuance of what that look is. So I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to just put these on top of each other just so you can kind of get a comparison of what they're doing. Each different channel is doing. If I just go over here and just start to turn off all these channels, you'll see that this Kodak film print emulation is this red curve here, and then the green curve. As I bring the green curve in, you can kind of see on the green curve on the bottom end, there's more green on the bottom, and then on the top end, there's less green. So meaning that there's going to be a little bit more of a warmer feel here and a little bit of a cooler feel in the shadows. Same thing with the blue. Blue is much lower in the highlight, so you'll have this more warmer orange highlight here, and on the bottom you're going to have there's a little bit more blue than green, so it's going to be a little bit more it's going to be cyan, but a little bit more skewed towards the blue in the shadows. and that'll give you that Kodak film print emulation look. So the actual film print emulation is based off of the S curve and the variations of this curve, or the channels themselves. Even when I take this, just to take a moment here and just talk about the tint itself, I don't think I did the tint on the actual graph, but if I was to move the color temperature or the tint, you'll see the same kind of separation starts to happen, and you start to get these different looks here, but same concept, different variations of red, green, blue separated along the curve itself. So going back to our film print emulation idea, so you may have a Kodak version, or in my case, which I will share with you guys, some LUTs and stuff like that to play around with. These are nothing special. These are just LUTs that I went into RE LUT Creator and just basically punched out the default ones. I may have tweaked a couple of these film styles just because I was just mucking around with different settings, but for the most part, they're pretty default. So, let's say the RE film style one, I'll drop on here and you'll see that this curve does something completely different. So completely different response, different red, green, blues, giving you a film style. There's a bleach bypass as well that is here. So much different, higher. You saw the curve just change from a less steep slope to a steeper slope there, which would mean giving more contrast. And I think there's a little bit less color separation actually happening. So staying in line with the bleach bypass, higher contrast, less saturation kind of look. Obviously we can stand here and go through all of them, but I'm just going to kind of focus in on the film style one. And let's just take a look at that one on a piece of footage itself. So if we were just to take this, I'm just going to blow away our grades and stuff, just start fresh here. But let's just take that RE. So all of these, obviously, RE LUTs are based off of, whenever you're using a LUT, there's definitely something you need to know about the LUT. The one thing you need to know about the LUT is what is that LUT expecting on the input. So for example, if I go to this Kodak LUT here and I bring it in, can you guys see this window here? Andy?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, okay, great. So I want to make sure that you're seeing that. So if I was to open this up in text edit, just open this up in text edit here and open the actual LUT up in a text editor file, you will see with the resolve ones, at least, there is a commented out section here, and in that section it says some information that's kind of important. It's saying that the display that is targeting is a Rec. 709 2.4 gamma, but more importantly, it's expecting an input of a Cineon log file. So in the case of our film style LUT, if I just did this, it wouldn't look right. What I would need to do is do a color space transform before. So bring in the color space transform here and basically transform the output gamma into what it's expecting, which is a Cineon log, Cineon film log. And then dial in from there our contrast and get our look. So very important to know what the input is and what the LUT is expecting. When you're using a LUT, a lot of times people grab a LUT and throw it on and it'll just doesn't work. And it may not work because of this very reason. So let's go back to our RE LUTs here and just talk about the film style LUT, and then I'm going to throw on the bleach bypass just to show you a few different looks here. But these RE LUTs are obviously expecting an RE log C image. This is here obviously RE log C. So if I was to just drop this on, we would get something that looks right for Rec. 109. Let's just drop on that bleach bypass, just get a different look and see what that does. So there's our bleach bypass, higher contrast, desaturated look. So you can use LUTs and drop them on. Some people love LUTs, some people don't love LUTs. I've kind of come back around to LUTs. They're great for kind of establishing a look in a color workflow that will work through editorial and VFX as well. So like, basically setting a look that goes through editorial, through VFX, so everyone gets accustomed to the look itself. And sometimes it's a good way of working about just setting the look and letting this LUT go through everything where everyone becomes accustomed to the actual look. So the idea here I was going to show you was two different things with the LUT. Sometimes when you put a LUT on, it may just be too heavy. It may be too much. Great thing to do is to either use a Colorist and Flame and just go, let's say, just use 50% of that bleach bypass. So using an opacity or comping it back over top of the original by 50% or 75% is a good way of working. Sometimes the LUT is just too strong, so backing off it with some opacity is a great thing to do. The other concept is you can do, I'm just going to put this back to 1 here, and I'm going to start almost doing more comping here and do a layer node. And I'm going to basically, and this idea is borrowed from another colorist, Cullen Kelly. Great colorist, great videos out there. Should definitely take a look at his stuff. But using a composite mode now and going to color, we basically can take the color from the original. So maybe we like the contrast of the bleach bypass, but we don't want the colors. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking out all of the color and taking it from the original image here. So I'm stealing this color, and the color is coming through here and being placed on top, but we're still getting the great bleach bypass contrast here. So it's a great way of kind of splitting out the color and the contrast from a LUT, if that's what you want to do. So either by just taking the overall LUT and just taking the opacity down is one idea, and then the other idea is to just take the actual contrast and not the color from the shot or from the LUT itself. So that's LUTs in a nutshell. It's always better to do all your color grading before the LUT and go into the LUT and allow the LUT to do its thing. I find that sometimes in some cases you might want to add a node afterwards, and rarely do I do this, but just starting to add in some other kind of, let's say, color tone. I'm just pushing in blue into the shadows or something. But this may be something you might want to do, but you have to understand at this point now you're starting to break the LUT or the look. Most of the time you want to just work before it, and let's say let's just ease up on the contrast or push up the exposure and the pivot a bit, and it's still bleach bypass, but we just augmented a little bit. So that's always a good way of working, or adding a little bit more saturation in. But definitely would recommend doing all your color correction before the LUT. Color space transform. So a LUT is one way of getting to a normalized image, and then the other way is to do a color space transform. So just going back into that color space transform, grabbing a color space transform, and just taking this and going into a we want to go Rec. 709 and 2.4 gamma, and this will be log C and So there you go. So the two ways of getting there, either doing that, or I'm just going to make another version and drop on this guy here, and just going to get rid of the color space transform, remove all the effects plugin. Okay, cool. So you have these two different ideas here. We have your color space transform, or you have your LUT that's applying the look and normalizing the image from its log C state. So LUTs, sometimes you get into problems because what it's actually doing is sampling the image, and there's interpolation between color values, and you may get some weirdness happening. Color space transforms are a little bit more smoother and using mathematical operations to not interpolate, but smoothly move from the color and the curve to get the look. So with the color space transform, you can back out of things a little bit easier. Sometimes with a LUT, you might get trapped into a corner. And that's really it for the color space transform and the LUT side of it. Let's just talk for a quick second about groups and fixed node structures. So great, we kind of set a look on one shot, but what about the rest of the show? So the idea of basically setting a look on a hero shot, you've got your director and your DP on board, they love it. And now you're tasked with applying that to everything else in the show. So let's just say here, for argument's sake, I'm going to apply that lookup table, and I'm just going to, let's say, augment it a little bit on both sides. I'm just going to open up the contrast, and I'm just going to push up the exposure, and I'm just going to, let's say, push some warmth into, I'm just going to push some warmth with some printer points into the reds. And then let's say in the shadows, I'm just going to use my log controls and use the shadow. And these log controls are now affecting different zones. So in the shadow, I'm just affecting the lower end here. And I'm just going to push some blue into our shadows. And I'm just going to toggle this on and off. And so now we have a little bit of blue coming into our shadows. And let's just say, director loves it. This is it. And DP is like, yeah, I'm good with that. Now the idea is to just take this fixed node structure and apply it to all the other shots. So grab all the other shots and apply. And now all of our shots.
Hardave, could you just make that window a little bit bigger?
The
one in the middle, the program, yeah, just so we can see the changes when you apply the color.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, sure, no problem. So here is kind of what we're doing, hopping from shot to shot. So what we've done now is taken that hero shot, applied the look to all the other shots, and if the DP has done its job and exposed everything around 18% gray with this idea of 3 stops above, 3 stops below, and using that principle across all, then technically all these shots should line up right away. And you may have a shot or two here or there. Let's say, for example, this shot here, maybe a little bit lower contrast, where now we start to need to do, we've set the look, we've applied the look, and now we need to just go into that kind of color correction world where we're just going to color correct and tweak this just a little bit. So here, I'm just going to just make this a little bit bigger for you guys again, add some contrast with that contrast dial, and just start to try to line this up and just bounce between the two. And then maybe you need the printer point or 2 or half a printer point, and start to just really now use a node before everything. So here's the node that I'm tweaking here, and just start to, on a shot-by-shot basis, start to dial in what needs to be done to make this a consistent look. So let's say you do all this and everyone loves it, the client loves it, the director loves it, and we're near the end of the session, and someone comes in and says, a producer walks in the room and says, "Oh no, this is all too warm. This is supposed to actually be something else." Since you use a fixed node structure, using a fixed node structure really helps, because now I can just cool down everything. Let's say put in let's do here. I'm just going to, let's say, cool down the image. Cool down the image. So just going to make this full screen for you guys. So I'm just going to cool everything down a little bit. And now when I've used this fixed node structure, I can now select all the other shots that we have here and apply. I can ripple the change that I just did by making this shot cooler on node 3 to all the currently selected clips. And now all of those clips now have gone cooler. And now you play this back for your client, and that new producer just walked in the room and ruined everything and told you it needs to be cooler, and you play that back and you say, "Is that better?" And then everyone takes a look at that and goes, "Oh yeah, that's what we meant. Yeah, that looks better." But
It's good to know
inevitably,
that you work with that guy too.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
inevitably you always have someone. But the idea is always to move quickly, do these adjustments, show them to someone, show them to everyone, play them back, and just it's this constant feedback loop. I mean, even with doing flame work, it's like A or B, here better or worse. These kinds of increments and showing people back and forth. But that's essentially the idea. If you work with a fixed node structure, it's a better workflow. In Lustre, they used to have different selector. You can select layer 3 and the contrast for layer 3 and apply it through all of the shots. I have yet to see that in Flame, that kind of functionality, but the idea of using each node to do a certain task and then having that consistency that on all of the shots, then allowing you to just change this one node and ripple it through all the shots is a very powerful way of maintaining the look and rippling it through everything. And that's really kind of the gist of all I wanted to say. It's just a quick little blurb about, if you have mixed footage, what do you do? So if you have mixed footage, grade in one color space. The idea here is to basically take your footage. In this particular case, I just took this RE log footage, and I just put the same kind of contrast curve that we built at the very beginning of this class. And then this next shot is a red shot. So I basically am going to show you what they both look like with nothing on them. So if I go to this shot and this shot, this is a RE Alexa shot. This is a red shot. This is a red shot that's actually getting some color management, but I'll move past that for now, just for time's sake. But the idea is, let's just pick one of these color spaces to color grade in. I'm going to pick the RE color space. I'm going to put my curve on it. Then on the other one, I'm going to use color management on a node basis here and basically turn this footage from the kind of Rec 709 look that it was in into RE log C, which is giving us this flat look. And then from there, I can now apply this curve onto that shot. And technically, these shots, I mean, obviously they're shot with different time of day, color, temperature, lighting conditions. But technically, these two shots now are closer together in color and where their primaries sit. So basically, I've taken the red footage and moved the red, green, blue primaries into a position where they're more aligned with the RE Alexa footage, and your grading will then be much easier to grade at that, or your footage will be much easier to grade at that point. So just to wrap it all up, finding the look, developing the look. How do you do that? You talk to the DP, the director. You look at websites. My favorite kind of websites are Film Grab. I've left a little link here. And Shot Deck. Shot Deck is probably my favorite. You do have to pay to sign up for that one, but in my world of discussing images, looking at images, you can make PDFs and send that to your clients and go, hey, this is what I was thinking for this particular show. So it's really a great way to communicate and talk about your shots. I highly recommend you go check it out. Maybe you find it useful enough that you actually purchase it and use it for developing looks and stuff like that. But I think all of the images that I showed you previously from those films were taken from this website. The great thing about them are they're really high res as well, so you can literally bring them into, let's say, Resolve or Flame, and you can see what the scopes are doing, and you can see, how much red there is in the highlights, and really kind of bringing in the shots into your spot into your software and looking at the scopes, and then cross-referencing that with your shot and bouncing back and forth between these and just examining the scopes really goes a long way in helping you dial in the look. So that's what I would recommend is, if you're going to set the look, find an image, get the DP and the director to, sign off on that and start bring that image in and start looking at scopes and see what it's doing and try to dial your look in to get to that place. But it all goes back to finding the look that was on set. I can go to a shot and I could, let's just quickly just say for argument's sake here, I could go into any shot and just start, bringing the highlights up, bringing the shadows down, bringing them gamma up, contrast. Now look what I've done to my, that doesn't even look anything like an S curve. So just pulling the dials and doing weird different things is not the best thing to do, but maybe to take a step back from everything and go back to the common principles of photography that people have been doing for 800 or for 100 years, and trying to base your look or your basis of the look off of that idea, that concept, and you'll be in a much better place. And it's like KISS, like keep it simple, stupid. Like don't have 30 nodes, do 2 3 nodes, see if you can build your look, a really strong look off of that. uh, you want to keep your image signal clean. You want to keep, less nodes is more. These kinds of concepts will be really good for you if you're, looking into the world of color. But that is really all I have to say.
That's great, man. And I guess that last S curve really looked like the readout of the like my blood pressure when the producer gets back from vacation and says that because they
Yeah,
weren't
yeah.
available for the original color grade session, now they would like everything to be cooler, so that they can leave their mark on
Definitely, if
the.
you, yeah, definitely if you start using that curve on your footage in a session, you're gonna flatline for sure.
Hello. um, two quick things. Well, before there were two comments that I wanted to share, but before that, Hardave, thank you. I think this was a perfect look at developing the look, and for everyone out there who, like myself, has gets a little gets sweaty palms when all of a sudden they're handed some raw footage and said, "Could you please develop a look?" and you don't know where to start. I think this is a perfect
Yeah,
explanation of how to get to
and,
that place, and then where to
and
go from there, so that you're not hamstringing yourself, or as you go further down the process when those changes eventually either get phoned in, or you get more shots and you have to apply the stuff, the same look
yeah,
for.
and just to add to that, I mean, the worst thing you could do as a colorist is turn to your clients and say, "Okay, what are we doing today?"
Oh well, I think
They'll
I
look,
remember doing
they'll
that
look at you and
specifically.
go, "Well, you're the professional. You should be telling us what you think or feel." And so, they're really relying on your creative input, much like as flame artists. Like they want to show me, something that will look good, and then
Oh yeah.
they
Well, I
go,
remember like my very first day as a like I learned luster as we got it at where I was working, and we were going to try it out, and I did the training, and I sat down with a room full of clients, and as the flame artist, I'm so used to asking them, "So what are we doing today?" Like that's just what flame artists do.
yeah,
And I said that when I was there for a color session, and I could definitely tell that I said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yeah,
But it was
you
the
immediately,
perfect
yeah.
illustration of like what's the difference between a colorist and a compositor? Because compositors can change color, right? It's really that it's you're bringing something to you're being asked or trusted to bring something to the process and not just push buttons. So
Yeah, it's a show me when it's done kind of aspect or approach where like much like with Flame is like you just composite the shot and show me when it's done and like let me know when it's done.
I love how we
Same thing
all
with
have a
color.
client voice that we drop into.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I guess I'm dropping into my client voice here, but yeah,
Two
we've
quick
all been
things, and then we'll. I got some prizes to give away. One, Jeff Kyle did chime in that he does to watch his tutorial on the image node when it comes out because Flame does have that feature that fixed node structure with the ability to copy from one to the other. So
brilliant.
thank you, Jeff. Looking forward to that. And then Bob Maple was wondering what is the flashing robot trash can in the background.
Oh, that there is a dehumidifier, the fanciest dehumidifier you can buy.
Amen.
That one.
Sweet. No, Hardave, this is really great, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We all do. And
Yeah,
Hardave's going to give me the LUTs that he was referring to earlier, and the links that he showed for places to go and look for different looks. And I'll go ahead and put those in the comment or in the description field in the YouTube posting for this episode. So let me give away some prizes, right? Logic prize time. Hey, I hope everybody has saved their raffle ticket because I'm going to read out the 6-digit number of the winner. No, I'm just kidding. We have here, hold on, Randy. All right, good. Whew, I have it. We have here the Wheel of Names from wheelofnames.com. And this is great because there's like whole, what do I use this wheel for? How to use the wheel? Anyway, I've got everybody's name here. We're going to give away 3 prizes today. The first is a very attractive and adhesive Logik sticker that you can adorn anything really with and show your support for Logik. So let's spin the wheel and see who gets themselves a Logik sticker. They're also available in the store. And that would be Gavin. Congratulations, Gavin. All right. Next up is a Logik t-shirt. So we're going to spin the wheel one more time. Da-da-da. Richard Betts, congratulations, man. And Richard, you may have a t-shirt already. If you do, let me know, and I will send you something else from the store. And finally, I have a 1-year subscription to Optics from our friends at Boris Effects that I can give away. So let's spin the wheel one final time as the music restarts blissfully. Dorina Dorley, congratulations, Dorina. I will send you an email, and thank you very much, Boris Effects, for all your support. All right. Well, that was fun. Of a moment here. There's Hardave. Well, this is. I'm never going to hear any of this, Hardave. Hold on. There we
yeah,
go.
Randy.
Yes, coming up. Coming up on Logik Live. Okay. In 2 weeks, on September 12th, next week's the Labor Day holiday here in the States. So Sunday, September 12th, we're going to do Sapphire 2021.5 release with our friends from Boris Effects. And then big announcement here, ladies and gentlemen. On Sunday, September 26th is the return of Joel Osis to Logik Live. Hold on. Yes. And then Richard Betts had asked on the forum if we could take a look at NIM, which is a project tracking application similar to like ShotGrid. I know I've used it before. I think it's fabulous. And we're going to have Andrew Sinagra from NIM. He's the developer behind it. He's going to come on October 3rd and show us everything about NIM. Definitely check that out. I had put a poll up on the Logik forum and on the Logik Facebook group asking if anybody's planning on attending NAB in person this year. That's coming up in like 6 weeks in October. And we're just trying to figure out what type of Logik stuff we want to do for NAB. And so if, just please head on over to either the forum, preferably the forum or Logik on Facebook, and just let us know. And then, maybe we'll do a follow-up to see what kind of stuff people would like to do. If we want to do like a user group kind of thing, we're open to anything, and we'll definitely make sure that we have some Logic activities planned during NAB. And yeah, speaking of the forum, please head over there. If you haven't already become a member, please do. It is definitely the place for the forum. And again, happy birthday to the forum, and thank you, Randy, for keeping that going. This episode of Logic Live, like all others, will be available on logic.tv. And if you haven't already subscribed to our 2 podcasts, please give them a listen. There's Ask a Flame Artist, where Randy and MBME answer your questions. If you have a question you've always wanted to ask a flame artist, but maybe we're afraid to ask, you can go to logic.tv/askaflameartist. The link's available on the website. Submit your question. You can hear it in a future episode. And then there's the Logic podcast. The most recent one I did was an interview with Jean-Marc Laurent, who's a flame artist and a small business owner up in Montreal. It was one of the best interviews I've ever had. It was so insightful and the conversation ranged from working at home, starting your business, how the industry is changing. I highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. Please subscribe to both of our podcasts in your podcatching app of choice. Randy, we're doing it. Oh, man, I have to update the graphic here. We're actually at 1.15 thousand subscribers, and we are just happy to see the numbers growing. If you haven't subscribed to the Logic YouTube channel, please do. You'll get a notification for when we do go live and for all of our new content. And please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/logictv. One of the benefits is you get some exclusive content. Right after this, we're going to go ahead and have a Q&A on Zoom that Hardave is going to host for our Patreon patrons. So if you'd like to be a part of that, it's not too late. Head on over and sign up. Thank you to our friends at Gunpowder. If you have any needs, either remotely or with stuff on premises, reach out to Gunpowder. We're currently using actually their cloud-based flame that they have running up on the Google Cloud. That's what Jeff used for his Logic Academy video. So, these guys are really great, and they're there for you if you need them. Thank you, Boris Effects, for the prizes that you give us. And if you are interested in purchasing any of their plugins, just remember to use Logic-15 at checkout. The Logic merch store is open. And if you guys do order any merch, and thank you to everybody who has, please be sure to send over a picture of either you with or wearing said merch, and we'll be sure to share those. Thank you, AJA, and of course, thank you to Synesys for sponsoring Logic Live. That's it for this week. I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. We're going to head over to the patrons chat. Thank you, Hardave, and thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.